Welcome to What the Flick, the final episode of the Newsroom called What Kind of Day It Has Been. Alonso, John, Brett, Ben. You, I know, were a little sad, John.
Yeah, I was a little bit sad. I didn't get sad immediately. Like the first 10, 15 minutes, I was not buying it. I was like, you're wasting too much time. You got to wrap it up. But little did I know they were starting to sort of unspool the threads that I don't know much about. Sewing. Anyway, they were actually wrapping it up, and by the end, I was pleasantly surprised, as we'll get to.
So there were flashbacks at a funeral, and you didn't immediately pick up on the whole, like,
Death,
circle of life and the, you know,
No.
thing.
That's why you're not invited back to any of the Newsroom reviews going forward.
No.
We're done here.
I get that. I get that they're always very heavy-handed with the symbolism and the metaphor and all that. I'm not really interested in that. What I want out of a final episode is I want to know closure for the characters' stories and sort of an idea of what I can fantasize happening going forward. That's what I want.
All right, let's take a look at a clip from the final episode of the Newsroom. Come back, we'll discuss.
I thought if I was at Charlie Skinner's funeral, it'd be because I'd killed him.
Please help me. I need to fully understand what's happening right now.
It is more than it is.
We think you need to know exactly what happened.
You were going to say a few words.
I just don't know what to say. I can't believe he's not here for this.
All right, well.
Is this the only episode that didn't have a breaking news story of your featured in the show?
It was at the end, though. Didn't they mention?
Oh, they did
one?
mention a bunch.
Oh, it was Prop 8 and a few things.
Right, but it was just like, I thought that was more.
I like that.
That was like, here, it goes on.
Yeah. But that kind of brought to mind like how I would have preferred this show to go. This episode was so much about relationships and people, and I think that is the strength. And and it got to where the news lives in our minds and days. But I wanted the show. I think now the show would have been better had they just gotten to when the show's, the show within the show is about to go on and just moved on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn because so many of the relationship parts of the show were so terrible. But
Right.
that said, I think they were sort of at their best when they found the right balance and when the preachiness worked. I mean, the problem with is that they were so preachy so much that even when it was good preachy, you were tired of the preachiness.
Weirdly, all the flashbacks to the pilot kind of reminded me why I got into this show in the first place.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I thought, I could see myself now going back and rewatching all of this just because I'm reminded of how much I like that very first episode that they keep citing here or building up to or, re-quoting or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think the relationships on the show, except for Jim and Maggie, which we all agree is the pits, are pretty interesting, and I kind of like seeing how they play out. It was kind of cool to see that Sloan had her eye on.
Yeah, that was nice.
I didn't like that.
You didn't like that?
That's trying to be too cutesy about the tying together. Not everything needs to come full circle. Things develop over time.
She moved on. We know she dated other people, but we say that when she first met him, there was a little spark, and then she went in and he was dating somebody. She was like, all right.
And their interactions were cool.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see sort of a combination of old Don that I didn't like and new Don that I do like in one scene, basically. The interaction.
Right.
He had a good ascent.
He was the most improved player.
Yeah. And so you said that one of the big problems is that it got too preachy, obviously, especially early on, too preachy and for too long. But one of the things that we liked about the show was that yes, it got too preachy and it did it for too long, but the rest of the time that was good and it was nice to see and it was different than anything I can think of from any TV show.
Yeah, definitely. Look, and this left it as without sort of telling us specifically how to feel about a certain news story. Here, there was just sort of a general sense of doing the news the right way, doing the news for the sake of the news, telling a story the right way. The examples that both Sloan used in her argument with Don were good about how the guy from Lehman Brothers or wherever he was from wasn't challenged in any way. At Rothstein, right? Abe Rothstein, and that also
Cuba for that.
and that also and Charlie's examples both to Will. And then in trying to recruit Mackenzie, I thought were good. And Charlie was way more subdued. Like the Charlie recruiting Mackenzie wasn't the Sam Watterson that I objected to so much that I know you liked, but I
you
didn't.
knew that he had to have that element to him because all of these characters are saying how sweet he is generally. I mean, it can't just be the screaming in the newsroom that we've seen.
It was the weirdness of him. It was the
affection that they did.
freakiness of him and the lack of credibility that I didn't like.
Nice dollop of Leona this episode, which I'm always happy to see.
I think to me that was my most important note. Was that's why it was such a good episode. Is that she was a major character in it, and she's just. She just Jane Fonda'd it up.
And it was cool to see someone who could match, BJ Novak or whatever. Like that guy is supposed to be so with it and so together, but she was able to once again sort of put him down. I also thought it was interesting that like we were talking about how much he was like his character from The Office in the other episodes, and I said that there were some small differences which they decided to shed for the final episode. He was exactly out of The Office in that one.
What I was like, I'm curious whether it was a direction tip or her. Like, Jane Fonda is such a good actress and is so impossible not to watch that, she does things that the great, like, is it scripted that she's fiddling with her earring as she delivers it? I bet not. I bet that's. I think that's Jane Fonda being Jane Fonda. It's business. She had business.
That was what was so frustrating.
High status is the situation. That was her objective, and she decided, how am I going to be high status? I'm going to have something else to do.
What does the character want? That was what was so frustrating about that movie, This Is Where I Leave You, because she's always so great, and the material was so not worthy of her there. Here, I think they really, you can tell Sorkin is on his A game for her and writing her the really best stuff.
Yeah, and I was happy to see the show go.
Yes.
Going into it. And there was definitely an element of me that was sad to see it leave with the way it went out, because I ended up really liking it. And maybe it was because it was the last episode that there were some things that got a little corny that I was willing to say, well,
the musical breakdown.
This is your swan song. I'm not quite sure Jim's going to deliver the perfect harmony in a song that they haven't played together before.
Right.
And also, that's not how you would telegraph changes. It's not a very intuitive song.
Please don't have the one black character sit down and begin playing the equivalent of bongos.
Yeah,
like serious. Come
the
on.
box. To be fair, that's like I know a lot of cheesy white dudes who own that. Like, I'm gonna sit on the box and play it because it looks.
Nobody knows that song.
Nobody.
Let alone.
No, I've never
let
heard that
alone
song before.
everybody.
Yeah, I've
and,
never heard
and then also I liked how was it in the song or in Will's speech? Bless you. Was it in the song or in Will's speech where he talks about the importance of sticking with somebody and.
That's in the conversation that he has with Char. Wait.
No, but then Jim walks in and overhears. I mean, it was the most. I think it was the song. I think it's in. Show. I mean, it's the most dead on.
Yeah.
Is Jim? What message do you think Jim might get out of this?
That's some Downton Abbey.
Yeah, right, totally.
There.
Yeah, that's right.
But really fast on the Jim stuff. Like you guys, I find that to be the least interesting, I think, of the relationships. I definitely liked the Sloan in the mirror. Like, they love to throw her in those little quirky. That was funny. And like all of the elements are right, and if Don had been delivering them to Sloan, I would have liked them. But like when he's walking out and he says, "Because I didn't love them," like that's a great line. But I can't remember any reason why he should love her right now, or why we should care if they love each other. It's so long ago that mattered.
That
was frustrating.
It was. What frustrated me about that was that it was inauthentically written.
It was a long flight to Cuba. All right, shit went down.
Right, but I mean, she asked him the question. How many? She's walking out. How many long distance relationships have you been? Well, why didn't they work out? That's not what anyone would ask in that situation. But it was all asked so he could say, "I didn't love them out the door."
Because they're having a conversation about trying to make it work, and so you say, "What? You've done this before? Did they ever work?" That's totally
then
a question.
Don't leave the room.
But,
I mean, like
that maybe, but the question is valid.
He had to drop the mic.
I didn't mind that scene. I didn't mind him walking out going, because I was in love with them. I mean, maybe I've just been beaten into submission.
You've been beaten into submission.
But I mean, I've had that conversation with people, and I've had long distance relationships before. I feel like that does blossom from that discussion.
A Sorkin moment I loved in this episode was the return of Neil and the whole thing about of all time and the last 14 years are not the same thing. Like, I've had that conversation so many times. If it's just me yelling at my computer screen.
I don't think Neil would have
here's
said.
the problem. Here's a quick problem with that. He was like, well, what makes overrated so much more interesting than underrated? In real life, they would respond with, yeah, we did underrated last week. Yeah, right. Like, they would. Of course they would.
The number of clicks is what makes overrated more appealing.
And the fact that the guy had no response, he's just like, welcome back. I'm sorry about Charlie. That doesn't happen in real life.
That's true. They aren't. I don't think Neil would have said, "You embarrass me." twice. That didn't seem like a Neil thing to
Yeah.
say. My wife pointed that out.
He is, I guess, he's been on the lam for a year. That's pretty
I'm
intimidating.
just upset with the fact that that was the most compelling thing about the season when he went on the run, and then we just didn't see him again
Yeah, that was
until
it.
the
There
end.
was no
Or the fallout of the story.
That's so.
Everyone, nobody cared about the story.
Neil's playing his touchdown. Okay, that's the end of that story.
I thought that was season 3 was going to be that, and season 3 was not that at all.
I'm going to say one thing about Jim. and
Maybe
First,
if we'd gotten all 12 episodes, that we'd have
know,
like
maybe.
Fugitive Neil.
I just wanted to see one Venezuelan Neil scene, like him hanging out.
I liked old Jim, like the Jim sitting in his
Empty apartment.
empty apartment. Not so much that he was sitting in the empty apartment or playing the music. At least they gave us that to know that he does play music.
Well, the idea that Jim would be watching like an instructional thing on how to play guitar when he already knows how to play guitar, in a way, encapsulates everything about this
that's a good
fucking
point.
show. Look how much smarter I am than you are. Fuck you. That is what this show is.
But that's true. That's a
so
great
often.
point. But I liked his
He sings
conversation.
by himself in 3 Hard Harmony.
But I liked the conversation with Mackenzie there. Like that was, when he's like, Will, what are you talking about? And she's like, no, you don't understand. He's got a gear you've never seen. I did like that. I'm going to say my last point about Jim and Maggie, because so maybe you're right that there was a scenario where he would say that, but as always, like it's slightly overwritten. Like something didn't work, and maybe it's just that after he says that and walks out, we just need a shot of her. We don't need her to go, wait. What did you say? Like they can't leave them alone.
Yeah, I get that.
Just
she couldn't just smile a little.
Yeah, she couldn't. Like that
would
was
be enough.
Be gobsmacked for a second.
right for a second. Right, she just got. But then her part of like that, her stuff of like, what did I just tell you? Because I want to be there because on the White House track, and that scene, I just kept thinking, as I thought when they were on the plane to Cuba, that maybe she'll take the train to D.C. and maybe it'll go off the tracks.
As a finale, we talked about things we liked about the episode, but as a finale, how do we feel that it worked?
I mean, for the Closure fans out there, I'd say it was satisfactory in terms of like, here's what happened to all of them, and they pretty much all live happily ever after, and yada yada. And it's certainly it's no 6 Feet Under.
Right.
Let's face it. Or even the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Like those are. If I'm not weeping in my sofa, then you failed.
You
frankly.
got to watch the Shield. You got to watch all 7 seasons to get to the finale.
Just to get to that one,
The
okay.
finale was the best. I thought it was good because I thought for sure we would get everybody quitting. I thought we were more likely to get a mass walkout, and that he was going to say that this is a battle that he thinks should have been fought but has been lost, which would be a fair point for him to make. That there's no cable news network doing the job that he thinks ought to be done, that we all think it ought to be done. But so I was surprised at the turn, and I liked that, and of course, I liked Leona's speech to save it, and I liked her great line about you have a PR problem because you have an actual problem.
I will say that I like the message that it sends about how to win the war of news. I mean, it's better, albeit not as clean as, well, we got to boycott this new direction. It is, we got to fight.
Yeah.
We got to find a way
Choose
on
to stay and
different
fight.
terms and get a way around, not giving up. Even if we have to kind of blackmail someone into our victory, that's how dirty they're playing, so that's how dirty we're going to play. And guess what? We were in the war.
I like it ending the way it did. Like things were sort of back to the way you want them to be, with enough changes of personnel that life goes on, things change over time. Although the fact that so much of it was couched with a comparison to the time right before they did the relaunch and their great expectations about what was going to happen, the reality sort of soured the future for me. That they're talking about, we're going to change, the course of the length, we're going to redefine the debate, but it's been 3 years. And they haven't redefined the debate. And I don't think that the world's much better than it was, even in their world. I mean, they're going to continue to fight that fight, and maybe that's the big point. But we didn't see them really deliver on the high hopes they had going into the first episode.
I think Sorkin, on the one hand, wants to deliver sort of an optimistic message of like, it's not impossible. We can make this happen. There is something worth fighting for. It's not just about quitting and walking away. Yeah. And at the same time, even he isn't willing to be like, this news network changed the world. He's acknowledging that, these are like tiny changes and little steps in the culture and in the discussion.
And then also there's still this feeling at the end of like, them just being happy they still get to do the news.
Sure.
Right,
You know, as
that's
opposed to
true.
changing
Wanting
it.
to.
It's like we have a
to
pretty
do it.
awesome job. There are issues with it, and rather than walk out, we can every day try to, in the dialogue between Mackenzie and BJ Novak and Will and Jim, try to figure out the best way to tell the story, which is news.
Yeah. We also, one really quick point, we found out why, like we've pointed out that Will has always been a very like sort of grim character. He doesn't smile, he doesn't laugh, and I found out in the last episode why. When he finds out that Mackenzie's pregnant, he stands up and he smiles so big, all I could see is his character from Dumb and Dumber, and that is why he does not smile on the show.
I think there might have been a.
He
that
looks
might-
so like the character.
That might have been a Dumb and Dumber salute.
Oh, you think so? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe.
I can't remember in the pilot. Did we see how shitty he was, or is this the first time that
No,
we've
that
seen?
was one of my first.
old
There's no
Will?
way he was that dumb. Like nobody fell that far. I don't think.
That dumb how?
That
He was
dumb,
pretty
like
bad.
missing. I mean, he was extremely dumb about how the news should be done.
I don't know that he was dumb. I think he was cynical. I think he was like, I got ratings, so fuck it.
Yeah, I think the whole
He kept up the
essence
rating
of it-
stuff for a while.
Yeah.
I just think the whole essence of it is this is a guy who, has that other gear, and
totally
he just
phoning
was
it
like,
in
I don't
and-
give a crap anymore. That doesn't what I did.
Yeah, he did.
And news after a
Charlie kinda
while
had
will
that.
just numb you.
Yeah,
I
he's
feel
given-
like
to Charlie, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
whole thing is that he's given up the fight, and then Charlie brings in Mackenzie to put the fight back in him. That was-
I got.
Oh,
I just
I
there's
like
just
that.
the extremes between sort of as always, as mostly with the female characters, but to me, Will in this episode, the highs and lows are too extreme. For Mackenzie was so dumb for this person we're supposed to believe is so smart. Maggie was so dumb, and for this person who now we're supposed to believe is so capable. By the way, being a field producer in Washington, and she should stay. She should be senior producer of that show.
By the way, I love the conflict of interest of I just became EP. You're going to be my second in command, even though arguably and almost obviously there are other people who are more qualified. But we're having sex. You're becoming my number
Where's
two.
Twofer? I wanted HR to come back and be like, no.
Right, yeah. What about
he was like, I wasn't even HR.
what
That
about
was a
Tess and Kendra?
Seriously.
They really made sure. Somehow I feel like they really made sure this year that we knew their names.
I didn't. There were
Is
some
that
people
over?
in that finale, like group of singers. I was like, oh, wait, those are two different people, like those two
yeah.
girls.
And then one of them's dating.
yes, yeah.
And one of them's dating Gary Cooper.
Yeah.
Because she put her.
Oh, everybody's dating Gary Cooper.
Yeah, that's true. He gets around. We heard that. I liked Don's little speech to Sloan about why he was keeping the job too. First of all, we know that Elliot Hirsch was not killed by that allergy attack.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
He's still around. We didn't see him, but he was referenced.
That was the funniest allergy attack ever.
It was he didn't even make any attempt to make himself feel better. Wait, there are olives in this? Walnuts in this? But it was painful. And but then I liked Don's speech, and I liked the wait till next quarter. We're up 288,000.
That's a real thing.
That's a
people
real
say.
thing. That was a real thing to say.
The episode, alas, leaves us with one giant unanswered question, which is, what the fuck is a personalized soda?
Yeah,
right, that's
Elizabeth,
true.
I think
the
that
I
Coke
probably
thing where it has
exists,
your
and I have
name
no
on it.
idea. No, she asked, and he said no.
The initials.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I love it, and that's why it's great because I don't even know. It's just
It sounds realistically bullshitty enough to be the kind of thing that the BJ Novak character would totally
it's
endorse.
the suicide of ideas, and by suicide I mean, did everyone make a suicide where you just that's what it is. I mean, that's the suicide of startup ideas thrown together.
Quench.
KW.
Look, I was sorry to see it go, and I think this was, I heard you mention as you came in, so I guess you agree. This was one of the, 2 or 3 best episodes. Like,
Yeah.
Which is what you want.
It ended strongly.
As irritated as this show made us from time to time, we certainly would never missed it, and we really liked to
No,
talk about it to each other.
Still, I would trade it for a shitty finale and a good show.
Right.
true.
Yeah.
But
So
I
what
like
is-
going out strong. And if there was theoretically a 4th season, I think you guys would be kind of happy. A little bit on the inside.
If they
Oh,
promise
just-
to have learned stuff.
I just wanted seeing Mackenzie balance a baby and her career. That would be awesome.
Doll and
never
M.
happened.
Just watch Doll and M.
We would have to lose Jim and Maggie in a terrorist attack. That's the only way I'd watch.
Is there like a I'm trying to think, Kungutska office? I'm trying to think like the furthest. Yeah, send him to Kundu. He's like,
Yeah.
anywhere that's like far, far away from the show, that's fine.
And the next time we see him, it's just like the wrong combination for Sorkin. One, you can go back to now fully loving Sorkin, and then the next time we see either Maggie or Jim and something else, like they'll be great. Just not with each other in this way of talking. Yeah. All right, we'll miss you, Newsroom. Thanks for provoking some of our most intense conversations. See ya.